What's going on, collective listeners? Appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode of the Samson Strength Coach Collective podcast. Today we have Myles Quimby, who is the assistant director of football strength and conditioning at App State. He comes to us with a variety of different experiences, but honestly, I think he brings something to the podcast that we haven't had a ton of so far, which is a little bit more of a sort of a stoic, reserved outlook on a lot of the different insight that he can provide around what we're actually doing as strength and conditioning coaches, specifically in football and competition, and how he goes about kind of creating that connection with his athletes. So, his story is really interesting, super humble guy. And I think you guys really enjoy listening to him talk. So let's get into it. What's going on, collective listeners? Welcome back for another episode. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm your host, Anthony Grasso. And obviously, you know already, if you've clicked on the Spotify link, that you are listening to the Samson Strength Coach Collective podcast. Today, we are joined by Myles Quimby, who is the assistant football strength and conditioning coach at App State University, that is in Boone, North Carolina. For those who are unfamiliar, just to give you a little background on Myles, bachelor's degree in kinesiology and exercise science from Shaw University. He has his master's in athletic administration and coaching from Alcorn State University. Some of the places that he's been: App State, Alcorn State, Virginia University of Lynchburg, and NC State. And he has sort of certifications through CSCS, and he has a certification through the United States weightlifting. So, Myles, welcome, man. Appreciate you hopping on. Obviously, we've chatted a little bit, you know what I mean, just to kind of get. But here's another podcast. Like a couple of the previous ones I did for the listeners, obviously, where I'm interviewing someone that I've never met before. So it's always really cool to obviously meet more people in the field, and good people like yourself. Like, you came recommended to, which is also really cool, that like some of our feedback mechanisms from our listeners and some of the people that we've interviewed have actually requested for you to be on. So this is super cool. So welcome, man. And I would love for you to kind of tell us your story, man. Tell us where this whole thing started and how it led to where you're at now.
I should have known that question was coming. At Shaw University, I played football there. I was a middle linebacker. I was there for 4 years. The thing that we really didn't have until my senior year was a strength coach. So first 3 years, like, I knew something was missing, but like, you know how you know something's missing, but like, you don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. So it was when I needed to get an internship for my exercise phys class. And they were like, hey, like, you can go talk to so-and-so at North Carolina State, or she's doing an internship at North Carolina State, see if that's something you want to do, because they're doing like training for football players and stuff like that. And I heard trainers, so I'm thinking athletic trainers. Yeah. I was like, I kind of really don't want to do that. Like, it was like, oh, well, they deal with the football players, getting them ready for the game and stuff. I'm like, I just really don't want to do that, man. Like, it's sportsman is just like, I respect the people that do it, but it's not something I'm passionate about. Next thing you know, my advisor was just like, go. If you don't like it, it is what it is, but at least, you get to see a different program and how they run things. So I was like, all right, okay. Go there. Totally blew my mind. It was my first time going to a D1 facility, seeing them train and whatnot. And I was like, okay, like, this is what we're missing back at Shaw. So I need to know this. I need to know how all this goes. So graduate, or junior or senior year, spring semester, getting ready to graduate, I did the whole internship deal. And at the end of my internship, I was like, well, I really don't know much about strength and conditioning, so I need to spend more time with this. So I told myself, dedicate 2 years to this, sacrifice it, do what you need to do financially, make sure you got the funds to take care of it, but don't use the funds as an excuse, because if you're going to take this serious, excuses mean nothing. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to dedicate 2 years. And that's probably the hardest and longest 2 years of my life, just becoming a coach, because I'm not really that vocal, or at the time I wasn't really that vocal. I was just, kind of quiet, observing, like, that's not right. Let me jot that down and we'll talk about it later if we get to it, versus like, hey, like, let me go ahead and correct you right now. And man, I tell you, man, all the coaches that were there, Rendrick, Matt, Tim, Mike Solomon, Thunder, like all those guys, I was just like, look, like, I just don't, this whole coaching thing, like, I want to do it. I want to train the athletes. I like the environment, but like the transition from not being exposed to it at all, even as an athlete, to wanting to do that, I was like, it's going to be hard. Going into year 2 of that, I was like, man, I don't even know if I can do this. And like having, especially Rendrick and Matt, like, hey, like, you're good at this. It's just the situation you're in, you need to be vocal, and opportunity that is going to present itself down the road. Like that's something that just takes time. So they were just the main ones that kept me in it. And I realized like real quick, like us as strength coaches, especially in the football realm, like we touch these athletes in totally different ways. And me being an intern and having some athletes, especially like the freshmen and sophomores, my second year interning, like think I was the actual coach, just because of like how I say observant now, because looking back, I was like, man, I really wasn't that observant. I was observant for an intern, but like not really as observant as I am now. So like having them think I was a full-time coach, and like time to time, like some of the administration people there were like, hey, like they were telling D'Antoni Burnett, you know, it's a 6-man staff. Like if you got a graduate assistant or paid intern or whatever, like you need to let us know because we got to figure out. And it was like, no, like he's just an intern. He's not getting paid. Like only time I actually got money was working camps during the summer. And I mean, that was just a little bit. It was only for a short period of time. So that transition, like I was just like, not as like, I guess you can say like professional. I was still like, not necessarily buddy with the athletes, but like I knew some of the athletes because Shaw and NC State is like literally you can throw a rock and hit the campus.
Oh,
so
really?
We were right there. So like some of the guys I already knew just because you're being in that football realm in that Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area, like you're gonna know somebody that knows somebody or whatever. So I was just like, it's gonna be harder for me versus an intern that never played the sport or coming from another state or whatever, because they don't have that they don't have that relationship with them already. So I was just like, it's kind of hard, like, you know, me being a college athlete, going out somewhere, going to a party or whatever, 9 times out of 10, I probably saw so-and-so. So like now they see me in a different light, and I'm just like, that's the hard transition for me, because how can I tell X, Y, and Z when, you know, a year ago, buddy saw me, you know, at a tailgate or whatever, or like at a party. That's going to be hard for me to do, but like they forced me to do it. Like, hey, like get used to being uncomfortable. This is what you want to do. You know, financially, this is your only opportunity, because if you try to go to another state, it's going to be hard for you. Because I was always picking up like some easy job to do, cutting somebody's yard, cleaning something. What was it? 16 and 17 is when DoorDash and Postmate got real big, and Uber and all that stuff. So, oh man, like saved my life, saved my whole entire career. Like, or Uber, like soon as I got off of work at internship, as soon as I got done that day, literally go straight to the Uber app, turn on the Uber app, and try to find somebody that need to go to work or coming from work or whatever. Like literally, that's how I made ends meet. At the end of my internship there, I was going to Virginia University of Lynchburg to be a graduate assistant and or a paid intern. We just didn't know what it was going to be yet. But I was promised, like, you know, you're going to get school paid for and X, Y, and Z. Next thing you know, the head guy there leaves to go somewhere else. And I'm just stuck there. And I'm just like, well, I came to learn more from someone, and now you're saying that someone has left. So I was like, and they were like, hey, like, it's football. It was only a few sports. It was football, track and field, and women's basketball. So they were like, you should be able to handle this. The coaches will help you out and stuff like that. So within a year, I was like, look, like, I appreciate the opportunity. I know these athletes got better, but I know there's more that I need to do as a coach to help them become even better. Like, I'm just giving you what I know from North Carolina State and the coaches that were there that helped mold me in my philosophy and whatnot. But I know this is not enough to be a director of a program, period.
So you served as like an interim director for that time though, because there was nobody else there. It was just
correct.
You.
Yep, it was just me.
So you went there to intern or be like a GA of sorts, right?
Correct.
And that might be the quickest transition from a GA to a head guy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, all right, like this is gonna be it. Like I'm gonna learn, get my master's. Wrong. Hey, our guy left. You're gonna be the head guy until we find somebody or figure something out. If not, you'll just be the head guy. And I was like, I'm 26. Like I just got done doing the internship. Like I'm telling you guys. Like, this is just me being humble just because of the internship I came from. Like I knew I wasn't ready to be a director, and I respect the profession. Like I'm not title chasing at all. So I was just like, I would love the title. I was like, don't get me wrong, I would love the title, but I know I'm not prepared for the position.
Yeah.
And after a year, I was like, I'm not doing what I need to do. Like I know there's still buckets I need to fill. just for me to be a coach. So left Lynchburg to go to Alcorn. Went there as a grad assistant under Lonnie Maddox, and that dude, people still won't believe it, and I still can't believe I did it either. Like, he was one coach, one graduate assistant for over 16 sports, just over 400 athletes. And when I say, like, he started at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we usually didn't get done until 9, 10 o'clock at night, just because of class conflicts and all that stuff. Like, I was just like, dude, like, I don't know how you do it. I'm trying to program for all these sports. And he was just like, look, like, I'm not big in the cookie cutter programs, but you got to understand, like, the majority of these athletes, like, it was their first time training. So just give them GTT stuff that helps them understand how to move and stuff, and we progress from there. Next thing you know, a year later, he leaves, goes to another school. I'm left here.
Wait, did you become the head guy at Alcorn State too? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Interim head guy for a little bit. This is when COVID hit, so like I was interim for a little bit.
Oh my God.
I was just like, this would happen to me. And he went to Valdosta State, and it's a great program. He said he would have took me if I didn't graduate, because I was fast tracking myself for my master's program. So most people would take 1 or 2 classes. I got approved to take 4 classes per semester. So I was just like, look, like, I didn't come to play around. You know, if I got to stay up late, study, do whatever, I will. Just because of the year I lost being the interim director there, I want to make it for that time-wise. And sadly, but at the same time, I guess it helped me out too. Once I obtained my master's and he got the job at Valdosta, all they have is graduate assistant spots there. So he had 4 graduate assistant spots there. And I was just, I told myself I'll do 2 years of grad school and leave it at that. So I was like, it is what it is. I'll stay here. I don't know what they're going to do with me. I got the interim title for about 6 or 8 months, and then they brought in the actual head, David Irby from South Carolina State. Like, the transition from going to South Carolina State to here and then having all these athletes, because one thing about HBCUs, they love their own. So like that 6 to 8 months transition, like where I was like the interim and then he just comes in, like a lot of guys, like it was interesting. And I think that was one of the buckets I needed to fill, which was like quality control, like help these guys understand, like, you know, it's not a decision that was taken lightly or, you know, just made out of like harsh intent. It was just something they thought was best. And at the same time, I also like lowball myself. And this is like me respecting the profession. I was like, hey, like, I'm a young guy. I know what I can bring to the table, but we would need to have these things in order as well. They were like, well, we already got somebody in mind. I said, all right, cool. Well, we need to make sure that outside looking in, alumni, athletes, stuff like that, understand that this transition isn't a shot at me and who I am. So that was very interesting. I appreciated it because it was seeing how our athletes thought about me was like humbling too. Like, you know, they see me every day, and then having them think they weren't going to see me again kind of like resonated with me big time. Like, damn, like, okay, like y'all actually care about me. Like, y'all don't see me as that strength coach telling you exercises that you don't like to do. So what happened? We kind of did a season together. Then I got an offer to go to App State, coming back home, which was hard to say no. Just going into the story of my life, people who helped me out during high school and college are App State alum. So I kind of already knew about App State for a minute. One of the guys that I played with at Shaw, this is me being me again. I told him, you're too good of an athlete to be here. Like, you chose Shaw because, you know, it was probably easily accessible, not too far from home, because he was from Farmville, North Carolina, which is just about an hour away from home. So it was easy for him to go home every weekend or whatever. And I told him, like, you need to go to a better school. Like, Shaw's a good school and everything, but like, you're D1 material. So he ended up going to App State as well. So that was my ties to App State regardless. Like, App State was always in my heart even before I got a job here. So getting the opportunity to come here and work under Brad and Sean Clark and all these guys, I was like, yeah, like, this is something I want to do. It's going to help me, you know, as a coach. Just obviously, you already know once you hop on that coaching carousel, you don't know where it's going to spit you out location-wise. So I was just like, I don't know when this opportunity will come again to be able to work at home, let alone a school that I respected. So that's kind of the, I guess, the coaching story of where I'm at now. Oh, dang, I forgot. I know you already introduced me and everything, but I also got promoted here. So when I got here in October, I was the assistant strength coach. I think it was February or March. Our assistant director, Derek Stork, he left to go to Mizzou. So it took some time or whatever, mainly because I didn't think I was ready for a position. Once again, just, hey, like, I know Stork, I respect everything that he does. I was actually waiting for the spring semester to learn more from him. He ended up getting his job to go to Mizzou, and I was just like every time I come somewhere, somebody I'm coming to learn something, and y'all are leaving every time. But like a month later, a lot of people, Brad included, and John Mitchell, who's our pretty much the boss's boss of our profession department. They were like, hey, like, we didn't see that you applied for the position. I was like, I didn't know I was in consideration for the
position. There's a reason I didn't apply. I don't think I qualified.
I just got here in October. Like, I didn't think. They were like, no, like, apply, update your resume, and we'll just go from there and see, if you make it past, the HR and all that stuff, and see that if you're qualified. You will go through the ring of fire again. You will have the regular interview as everybody else. So did that, went through the interview again. Everybody was like, oh, like, didn't you just get here? I was like, yeah, but it's for a different position now. So, back at it again. They were like, okay. Ended up getting promoted to assistant director back in mid-March, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that's been a blessing too.
Oh, congrats, man! Why did you tell me that before we got in there? This guy is super humble. Well, I mean, I guess again, like, correction to all the listeners, we are amongst greatness. Myles Quimby is not the assistant football strength and conditioning coach at App State. He's the assistant director of football strength and conditioning at App State now. So you're a big deal, man. This whole podcast just turned around. This whole thing is different now. Everything is different. This whole podcast has changed.
Yeah, my girlfriend keeps like having to remind me, because I tell people that, she'll introduce me to family or friends or whatever. I keep saying, assistant strength coach or whatever. She's like, no, like, you're the assistant director. You got promoted. And I'm just like,
100%, 100%, man. Well, it's fun. It's funny though. Like, I mean, even when you're telling, your buddy at Shaw, you're like, hey man, you're too good to be here. Like, you're D1 material. You need to get out of here. And then everywhere you've gone, right, you're trying to learn from these people. And it's like, and every single time I feel like it's some sort of signal to you from, whatever you believe in, right? Like, it's like, hey man, I went to this spot. Okay, cool. Head guy leaves. It's like, yeah, I wanted to learn from him. And they're like, hey, well, we're going to put you in the director role. So could you handle this? And you're like, humble enough and modest enough to just be like, listen, I'm not prepared to obviously provide the material that these athletes need or whatever. Go to Alcorn State, same thing happens, right? Go to App State, Stork leaves or whatever. It's like every single time, it's almost like someone was telling you, hey bro, I know you want to learn from these guys, but the reality is you might actually possess the knowledge base enough to be able to earn these titles and, at least have the qualities, that you need to obtain some of these positions or whatever. So someone's been trying to send you a sign for quite some time now. And finally you just got forced into it. Like, listen, you're not going to go anywhere anymore and like wait for people to leave and then say, oh, well, I guess I'll have to go somewhere else then and try to learn. Like, you're going to have to learn from yourself, right? And kind of like figure this thing out on your own. Well, so congratulations, man. That's actually a really awesome story. Like, that's really cool. I don't know did you have more that you wanted to kind of add on to that? Or is that kind of where you're at now?
Yeah, that's the story. That's where I'm at right now, trying to take care of these athletes, man, getting to know them. Like, me personally, I feel like I don't fully know someone until I'm with them for a year. So actually, I'll be coming up in the year in October. So like, just getting to know them at an accelerated pace right now. A lot of these guys, man, they trust you already because they feel your intent straight out the gate. And a lot of guys told me when I got here in October, like, we thought you were going to, just disappear at the end of the season and stuff like that because it's coaching turnover. App State's a very good school. So a lot of guys get plucked, go to another school, getting paid more, whatever. And I was saying, like, it's very cliche to say, like, I'm not in it for the money because I don't believe in single income revenue. So I was just like, I'm not really big on the salary or the title or whatever. So I'm not really pressed on it. So I'm not really leaving no time soon. And, oh yeah, whatever, man. Like, we'll see at the end of the season, at the conclusion of the season or spring. I was like, I'm dead serious. Like, I'm not like complacent, but at the same time, I understand like I need to be somewhere. I need to get tenure. I need to actually invest and develop myself, but also the athletes I'm around, the people I'm around. So I was just like, this is a sacrifice to do in order to better my life down the road. Because, and I tell guys all the time, I'm not trying to like go away from strength conditioning, but at the same time, a lot of our people in our profession just see this like, I need to get the title to get the money. And I'm like, well, I'm big on passive income. So my thing right now is just investing in real estate and just getting a house, renting it out, doing that same thing until, you know, you get enough to where you're like, all right, like I'm good here. So I'm not really concerned about money. And I feel like I'm at that point now to where, okay, yes, obviously I don't want to be taken advantage of, which some schools will do if you're not pressed for money or anything. But at the same time, I know what my worth is. And it's obviously, obviously, I say this now, obviously, where I see my worth isn't as high as some other people because of the situation that happened here at App State. They were like, apply, like, we think you're qualified, even though I was just like, really? Like, you sure? They were like, yeah, like, apply, update your resume and stuff like that. So me going back to just the athletes, like, me telling that to the athletes, like, let them know, like, if I can stay here, unless, like, you know, the NFL comes with like some crazy contract, like I'll be dumb enough not to take or whatever, like something obvious like that. I was like, I'm here for the long run. Like, of course, other schools are gonna hit you up and stuff like that. That's just the nature of the game. But I'm home for one. I like the environment because being on the Rock, like, you know, some schools you deal with, man, like especially if you're dealing with other sports, there's just so many personalities and kids that don't want to train, kids that just don't want to do right. It's just like, like you're making this job way harder than what it needs to be. And just being that athlete, having guys wanting to come do extra work, actually get to know you as a coach too. Like October, I feel like I had like at least 60 interviews just because of all the athletes that just came, like, where are you from? What do you like to do? And just over and over and over again because they know that they're going to spend a lot of time with me. They want to get to know me as much as possible. So a lot of downtime during the season, guys are just coming to the office, just, you know, talk shop and just, you know, it could be about fishing, playing Call of Duty, the season. We'll watch, you know, reruns of games and stuff like that. And I was just like, you know, I've never been exposed to that, so it was always different to me. And crazy story is when I first got the app, Brad would tell you, like, probably like the first 2 or 3 weeks easily. Every time we got done with our groups, I always ran out the office, like getting ready for another group just because of habit. Like, as soon as we get done, I'll take a shake, check my phone or whatever, and hop back out. And like, Brad would come out of his office and be like, relax, like, that's it. The day is done. Like, we're just gonna put body weights in, go over the day, get ready for practice. Like, that's it. And I'm like, you sure? Like, Myles, it's only football. It's only football. And I was just like, dude, it's been so long since I've been only football. I'm ready for like,
I think there's a word for that. It's called trauma. I think it's called trauma. Like that's what it is. Like you're just so used to like, oh yeah, we're at 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the floor every hour on the hour, just getting groups in and out. And it's like, yeah, you go do football and it's like, oh wow. And even football can be like that sometimes if like you don't have the staff and some of these places don't have the resources or whatever. And like, you know, but yeah, I think it's like, yeah, you get a couple groups or maybe you're splitting them up by, you know, levels or position groups or whatever the case may be. I think it's just like, it creates a totally different ball game. That's so funny. You see like hustle out, like pound a shake, hustle out of the office. You're like looking around, like, all right, where's the next guys? Where's the next guy? Like, bro. Like there are no other guys. There are no next guys. Like the next guys, they're tomorrow. All right. So like,
that's tomorrow. 6 a.m. Don't worry. You got about 12, 14, 16
Yeah, you could do a bunch of stuff between now and then. Don't worry. Like you got plenty of time. Don't worry. Yeah, that's awesome. That's fun stuff, man. It is wild though. It is a different shakeup. I think Olympic sports and football. I think both are super enjoyable. Like, I mean, I think it's like it's I kind of go back and forth on it. Like for a while, I was kind of like, man, I think every Olympic sport should just have one strength and conditioning coach. You know, I think they should, you know, one coach that could really just focus on the sport. And I know that that's not a great, you know, economic model for athletic administrators or anything like that. And although, and it may not necessarily be needed, right? There's a lot of coach, but like, how cool would that be though? You know, how valued would those athletes feel? Like probably pretty valued, right? but I do think it's nice, like, when you see like some Olympic sports that have, one strength coach or whatever, designated to them, but they're not like, if you get like higher level baseball, higher level basketball, obviously football has I think it's, but you'll see like one strength coach with like 3 teams or whatever at some of these bigger universities, which is kind of nice. Like that works out pretty well. Even 3 teams though, I swear, like because I've been around like some coaches who are like, I would consider like pretty good strength coaches, and they have 3 teams, and one of those teams like a major tier 1 team. And it's like, they would tell you like, bro, 3 teams doesn't seem like a lot of teams. It's a lot of teams. You know what I mean? It's a lot of teams when you're really trying to consider like all the things that you need to consider. There's a lot of chaos within that, regardless of the tiers of the teams too. So, I don't know. It's that's a whole separate conversation, but that's cool, man. Like that's an awesome story. I'm really glad that you were able to kind of get, because I'm always pumped when people are able to get to do what they love around people they love. So obviously you're back home, you're around your family, you're, what you said, 3 hours from home or whatever. So, in Raleigh. So I think it's, it's cool to just, to see that people can actually make the football dream happen in a place that they actually like. So, I guess my next question would be, after kind of like, while we're on the topic and while you just kind of went through the whole story, like, you want to kind of take us through some of your thoughts on like successes and failures, like through some of those experiences, right? Like I'm sure at 29 now, like there's probably some things that, you can look back on, right? You have like a little bit, like enough of, it's not like you're full of wisdom at 29, right? Like I'm 31 and I feel like there's still so many things that I'm just like unaware of, right? But like, I can look back on the past 11 years of my life and be like, okay, well, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. Probably shouldn't have done that. Right. Like, so yeah, if you want to kind of talk about like some successes and failures, at least the ones like up to now. And I think what I think is cool, this will be on air. And the reality is like maybe in, who knows, another like 2 to 3 to 5 years, you come around for a part 2 and maybe your successes and failures have changed a little bit and lessons learned. You call them like successes and lessons learned, I guess is probably the best place. But yeah, so what are some of your thoughts on those as you kind of travel through this hectic football journey?
I'm trying to think of like a bad failure. So when I got the position at Lynchburg, I did a 360 from intern to head guy because of what I saw and what I thought a head guy needed to be and what these guys needed to be. Not necessarily knowing these athletes, where they're from and stuff like that. So I was very like, standard is the standard. This is ingrained in me, and you need to learn this, and not thinking like, well, these guys haven't been exposed to a strength coach, period. Like they had one for a short period of time, but even so, like there was nothing, they weren't molded into anything. So I was just like some guys told me like traumatizing. Like obviously, later down the road, I eased back from that, but like, I mean, like when I say I came out hot, man, I was just like drilling structure from freaking, what's that movie? Full Metal Jacket. Like I'm talking about. Oh man. Yeah.
Oh no, I forget what that dude's name was. What the major or whatever, the criminal. Yeah.
I'm talking about like I'm grilling them up and down, man, being like not super demeaning, but like any slight gesture that wasn't like positive or anything. I mean, like I addressed it right then and there. Like guys throughout the season, because that happened during the spring. Summer happened. I kind of like transitioned because I was tired too, because that just wasn't who I was personally. Like I'm just very like observant. I'm passionate about the guy. I want to get to know you, not only as an athlete, but as a person as well. So like, I don't even know these guys. Like this is what I'm saying at the end of my season or spring evaluation for myself. Like I remember writing it down before I got there, and then literally opening it back up, and like the first like 3 dots are like, how well do you know your guys? Who do you have the best relationship with? Who do you think needs more love from you? And I was just like, dude, I felt bad for myself and for them. I was like, dude, like what am I doing? So summer comes along, I was like, I gotta take care of these guys. Like, so we started doing like stretch sessions, which were really like yoga sessions, because all I was doing was just like literally just getting them like hypertrophy straight out the gate. And like they were not liking it at all. And I was just like, you're gonna effing do it. And if you don't effing do it, blah 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 blah. And they were just not used to it, nor should they have to be honest with you, to get them going. So that was like I saw, and I still use that model as like, okay, I can't go back to that ever. I can never be to the point to where I don't care about, how a person feels, or, if they can't get in this position, like calling them out their name and stuff like that. Like me, like not only professionally, but like just my personal life, I felt like I just felt that part of my life because of like, I went away from who I was to try to show them that, Sports Center, ESPN, D1 college strength coach, experience. And I was like, that's not really what it's about. Like they show that, but like we all know that's not what it's about. Like I don't need to beat my chest and do 10,000 curls and yell up and down and wear what are they called, jorts and cut off shorts and stuff like that. That's not who I am for one. Like I'm very like low key. I will say I like putting my hands on my athletes now, just to like see if they're alive. I'm my professor, Dr. Palmer, was very like kinetic, like centric. Like he always put his hands on me, make sure I was alive. He put his hand on my chest to make sure my heart was beating. He'll tap me on my back, make sure I'm ready to go. Like this is for class. He's doing that. And I was just like, that's what I need to start doing. So once I left Lynchburg, that's what I started doing. I mean, Alcorn, any athlete, I don't care if it was freshman, sophomore, male or female, I always made sure like these guys and girls knew I was there for them. Either it's, big old hug, making sure you're alive, smack on the back, bump on the shoulder, pinch the bottom of your leg, mess with your ankles, untie your shoe, like anything just to like get them to know like, I know you're here. I want to make sure you know that I know that you see that I'm here. So make sure, we're ready to go. And a lot of the athletes at Alcorn, like, they weren't like not receptive to it because they're just, I mean, Alcorn as a whole, like it was a different environment there, like down south. Kids, I mean, like I've never been exposed to that many country people in one setting. And like I don't say that in a negative way. I don't say that in a negative way because it's all love at the end of the day. Like when I say like the love I got there, man, like it reminded me of home. It reminded me of how people treat you at home. And I was just like, I'm leaving one place of love to go to another place of love. And the only difference is obviously I'm working with football, but it's just location. I'm closer to home. I'm closer to my family, but the people there, the athletes there, Coach Mack and all those guys down there, like they show love start to finish, and they're transparent about anything and everything. So that's the one thing I would say, failure-wise at Lynchburg, that motivated me to be myself even more. I'm trying to think like success-wise, I can tell you like, we won the SWAC in 2019, but the big success for me was after learning that failure at Lynchburg was when I got to working with female athletes at Alcorn. I had to change, obviously what I said and, not being super masculine, chest bumping, smacking them with the butt and stuff like that. So it forced me to like, all right, like how can I get these girls going the same way I get these guys going so they don't see like, oh, well, Q treats, the males like this and he treats us like that. Like I never wanted that. And the crazy thing is, it was softball that noticed that, like, the guys, like, I'm like, being real, meathead man, like, smacking them on the chest, making sure they're good to go and stuff like that. And, like, some of the girls were like, so why don't we get that? We don't get that kind of love. And I was just like, y'all want that? Like, y'all sure y'all want that? Like, yeah. And I was like, all right, y'all asking for this. Like, I will come out of nowhere and just chest bump you, hit you on the shoulder a little bit. But, like, they knew I wasn't doing that to beat my chest or to make them feel uncomfortable. They knew I was just doing that out of love. So they trusted me with that, which then had them trust me with my programming and stuff. And I prided myself on not doing a cookie cutter program. So like if one of my track athletes was like very deficient at RDL, I needed to make sure she was working on that movement pattern. She, her hamstrings weren't developed or was super short, so her stride length and her gait was affected. So her workout had to look totally different from, Buddy, he's a fourth year track star runner. He's been winning SWAC for the past 3 years. His workout was going to look totally different from hers. And athletes saw that and understood, like, okay, like, he's not going to have us all do the same things. And seeing her transition from, I mean, she was a pretty good runner. She ran cross country. She was real good. Her transitioning from, I don't even know if she played in the indoor and outdoor, but ended up winning it all this past year. And like, even though I wasn't there, I was just like, that's cool. The next thing you know, she reached out to me, was just like, hey, like, even though you weren't here, I still applied the majority of the training that you gave me, because I always gave me the sheets. And when I left the sheets there, because I was like, I'm big on leaving a place better than what you found it. So I was like, I leave this to y'all because I know you guys want to use this later down the road anyway. Like, it was just the rest of the 4-week program I had anyway. And I was like, I'm not going to use it. It does nothing to me to have it, thrown away or in a file cabinet anywhere. So her saying that, I was just like, okay, like, I know I was doing something right, at least from her. And then another track athlete, I want to say he made it to nationals. If not, did real good in regionals. He said the same thing, and I was just like, man, like, okay, I did something right. I knew I did something right. This is right after I got promoted, because that's really why I was just like, dude, I don't even know if anything I do is good. Like, I still don't have like a full year under my belt training athletes and seeing the success. So I was just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then having them say that, I was like, okay, like, I'm on the right track, but now I'm with football. So now Brad giving me athletes to train, which is the developmental guys, and it's been fun, man. Like, just making them, obviously stronger and better and stuff like that. And I tell a lot of people, outside looking in, making them stronger, making them more conditioned. If I can't do that, I shouldn't be a strength coach, period. It's making it translate to the sport that they play is a big deal. And I think that's one thing I would say that we definitely, as like a profession, need to let people know is we don't just train athletes to get, stronger and bigger, have six packs and, veiny biceps and stuff like that. Like, we also train them to make sure that they're safe when they go out and play in the field. And a lot of people think it's just, in the words of LL Cool J, candy muscles.
Candy muscles.
Got the nice looking biceps, your chest looking good and stuff like that. But I recently was talking to someone. I was like, at the end of the day, it's all prehab stuff. All the shoulder work that we do, like, the musculature is going to look good and, appeasing to society. But we all know, PTs, athletic trainers, strength coaches, we all know it's more preventive for them, like to ensure the likeliness of injury is not high if they have a developed shoulder from all parts. Sure. And I think, man, like, where we're at right now, I'm talking about App State, where we're at, man, like, the trust, the love that these athletes got, man, like, they understand that it's not just a show. Like, this is life-changing exercises and stuff like that. It's going to help us be better athletes, but I'm not going to be hindered in anything once I leave, this athletic realm, this environment of training and stuff like that. Even though a lot of guys, they keep saying it, man, obviously when they get older, I'm not going to do any power cleans or anything like that once I get out of school. And I'm like, hey, I don't blame you, man. Like,
you don't have to.
You ain't have to. Just make sure you do the right things and be holistic on your approach. But it's real, like, I don't know, it's humbling, man. Like, this past year has been real humbling, seeing people, trust and appreciate you and stuff like that, and never being exposed to that prior to. It's just like, we're on the right track of doing something that a lot of people notice, and it's not even, I can't even talk down to guys who've been doing, like, that meathead, like, beating their chest my way or the highway and all this other stuff. It's what they've been taught to, and you only know what you know. So this is the only way they know how to train athletes. But I think a lot of people are starting to see you don't have to do that in order to get the athletes to do what you want to do, and also make sure they're safe and successful.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think kind of going back to what you talked about, or just that little bit of insight that you receive from those athletes, letting you know, like, hey, man, you made an impact on my life. Like, it's weird because, like, I think we are all appreciative of certain people in our lives, but like how you go about communicating that, it's never as clear. Like, because, think about it, like, you have people in your life that you're really appreciative of, and you may think about it all the time. And maybe in your mind, because of the fact that you think about it all the time, you would assume, well, they must know then, you know what I mean? And maybe you've said it once or twice, whatever, but like, you got to think about what you were going through as a coach, right? You're dealing with multiple athletes, you deal with administrators, you deal with sport coaches, you deal with your boss, your direct supervisor, right? And you're factoring in almost everybody's interpretation of you, how you do things, right? Whether you know what they think or not, you have your perception of what they think,
Right.
and you're constantly you're evaluating that in your head. At least that's how I would operate. Like, and it wasn't even conscious. Like, there's times where you have to like stop and be like, bro, like chill. Like you didn't even realize it, but I was doing this yesterday. I'm like, dude, you're thinking about like 17 different things right now, and you didn't even realize it until you just like stop for a second. We're like, whoa, it's only been 5 minutes. Nothing has changed. You are thinking like literally like weeks ahead right now about like a bunch of different things. Like you're just making shit up in your head about like what people might think, what people might say, what like or whatever. You know what I mean? And like just making stuff up. So it's like I think of it as like, and obviously these athletes don't know that like you, Myles, is like an adult. Like that's like they're eventually going to start thinking that way if they don't already, right? Like when you get to adulthood, it kind of seems to go that route. But you know, that it almost like slows you down a little bit. It like kind of like brings you back to life of like, oh, all right. So like these people think I'm doing a good job. You know what I mean? People think I'm having an impact. And oh, okay. So like life isn't moving as fast as I think it is, you know what I mean? At least like in terms of just the actual you know, the pieces coming together. I think they take a lot more time than people realize. Like the journey is long, man. You know what I mean? Obviously, unfortunately, it could get cut short at any day. I'm not saying that it can't, but the reality is like the journey, it takes time. You know what I mean? So and I've always heard, you know, it's better to travel than to arrive, right? And it's like that's kind of the journey is the destination thing. It's like you're in the journey, and then along that journey, every once in a while, you get a couple athletes or even your supervisor, maybe some other people you work with that you don't know, like, hey man, you do a really good job when it comes to like piecing together these pieces of the puzzle when it comes to like programming, or you do a really good job at like making really complex stuff super simple for our athletes. And like you know, in their minds, they may think that you already know that. They may think like, hey, Myles knows he's damn good at his job. But the reality is like, well, a lot of us don't really think that way. Especially you, from like the short time of getting to know you, like, you know what I mean? Like you're very humble, obviously. So it's like, you know, I think that there's a lot of value in that. But I think that those moments, you know what I mean? Like they kind of like bring you back to like, they almost like ground you a little bit. You're like, we're like, I'm actually doing a decent job. You know what I mean? So no, it's cool. It's really cool that you're able to like experience those things. And it's cool that like now you're in a place where you know who you need to be, and it's just yourself, right? And like, you know, at App State, obviously you got some some things like you said, clicking on all cylinders, things starting to come together, the trust level is high, obviously the talent level's there. And what I was thinking when you're describing these things, because for the longest time, like when I first started interning, I was always like, what's the point of all this? I'm that guy. I'm the like, what's the point of all this guy? Like I just,
why are we doing this?
Yeah, like it's like that's just like who I don't know. I've always been that way. Like I'm always like I at least 2 to 3 times a day I have these moments where I'll stop for like a good half an hour and just like analyze the whole like situation of life and like why it's set up the way it's set up. And I'm like, so like even if all that, like what are we doing here though? I don't get. And then I'm like, bro, not now, like some other time. So like that's how I think. So I've always thought about that when it came to like what we were doing in the world of strength and conditioning and collegiate sports. And I remember I'm like, there's got to be something more to this than winning games. Like there's got to be, because then it's like you win, even if you do the best you can at your job, you have an extremely successful season. Everybody achieves great things. You win whatever the highest level of achievement that you could possibly win in whatever respective sport you're competing in. You know, you're standing on the grand stage, you get a trophy, there's confetti, you know, everybody hugs, and then like you go home and there's like 2 weeks off, and you come back and you start process all over. And if you were to just stop at the moment where you like achieve everything and it all comes full circle, you're like, okay, cool. And it's like, okay, well now it's like, if you're a professional team, a lot of those guys are probably getting traded because they can't afford to be, you know, paid by whatever organization. And so it's like, they're moving on to a bigger, or they're a free agent or whatever. If you're a college program, you're probably losing some of those guys to graduation. They're going to go off and do it, and you're just going to replace them with other guys. Right. So like, that's the part of it that kind of started to make me feel like there was a little bit of like not like disingenuous, I don't even know if that's a word, but just sort of like this like unnatural feel to like what we were doing. Cause I'm like, well, we just replaced people with other people to get this job done. And I guess, and everybody says that the ultimate thing is winning games. But what I'm thinking, and it's kind of like was a little bit of an eye opening more for me when I'm hearing you describe what you're providing is a platform for people to have a chance at just like competing over and over again in their life, whether it be internally or whether it be like externally on the field or whatever it is. But like, I think that's what it is. Like, you're providing an avenue and a platform, right? You're providing some good coaching, some good, human to human connection, obviously, which you've made, abundantly clear through the power of touch and the power of just overall communicating and showing love, right? And then there's like, okay, well, these kids are going to get a chance to go to school. And so like, they're going to come across someone like yourself who they trust. And it's like, okay, well, that was a superior that I trusted. Myles did a great job of guiding me. I really feel like I trust him, you know what I mean? And his guidance. So now I'm going to start to apply some of those things to what I'm going to do in the rest of my life. Right. And you're just giving these kids a chance to continue competing, just staying in the game and whatever endeavor they come across in their life. You know what I mean? It's like that to me, I think is like a bigger picture, because I was always just like, yeah, all right, so what? Man, we go play football. I'm like, I was at UConn, obviously we never won games. So I was like, you know what I mean? I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, we were considered like one of the worst college football programs in the country, like multiple years in a row. But even so, like, it was crazy. I would show up with this like hope. I'm like, I feel like we're doing something bigger here though, because it doesn't matter. Like the football games, they just don't matter that much. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I'm out of college football now, so maybe that's the wrong take on it. Maybe some dude's like, nah, bro, that's why you're not in it anymore, because you thought the games didn't matter. But I do think, you know what I mean? There's got to be something more. So if you want to kind of, I'm sure, I know I just dropped like a boatload of stuff on you, but you know what I mean? If you want to kind of like give us your take on that.
No, I definitely feel that, man. Like, I tell guys all the time, like, professionally, obviously, it's win games, get better athletes, get them drafted and stuff like that. I mean, that's professionally, but when you go on that personal part to, sometimes for a lot of people, professional and personal doesn't always align. So personally, what do you want to get out of life? And then majority of the time, the answers I got was, make boatload of money, make my parents proud and stuff like that. I was like, you're mixing professional and personal every time you give me an answer like that. What do you want to achieve out of your life? Like, just, you're in your deathbed, you got a boatload of money, but you didn't achieve what you wanted for your family or whatever. You're going to feel satisfied before you die, your last breath. You're going to be disappointed in yourself. The majority of the athletes like, yeah. Younger guys, they'll say no because I had a ton of money because they're still young and just don't understand. The majority of those, like, rising junior, senior guys, transfer guys that I talk to, they all say the same thing, like, well, like, I need the money in order to achieve, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, well, you're seeing it one way. You're seeing it as, if I don't make money with football, I am now a failure in life. You have to distinguish the two. You have to. Mm-hmm. Like, if we win a ton of games, we go to the championship, we win the championship and stuff like that. Now that puts you in a better position, draft stock wise, opportunity wise, to go to the league. Yes, meaning that you get money. Yes, but let's say for whatever reason we don't become successful. What are we going to do? And now, this side note, we weren't successful last season, and we went 10-4. So I was telling them, like, in the eyes of other schools that would kill to have 10 wins, I'm telling you, like, it's not going to hinder you at all. Like, it's not going to hinder you. It's going to hinder what we have here professionally because of our high standard and what we see in being success. But at other schools, they're going to want you because of the insight you have of our program, meaning that you're going to get money in your pocket because of the experience you have here at App State. And a lot of guys are just like, it's like cracking Pandora's box. Like, yeah, I didn't even think about it. Like, yes, there's multiple ways to get income. So you looking at it one way, very linear, is going to inhibit you from seeing it a totally different way. Okay, we went 10-4. Dang, we weren't successful. Do you know there's schools down the road that's like, what in the world are they doing to get 10-4? Even though we're saying, man, that's not good enough. We didn't win the championship. That's not good enough. Yeah. But you got other schools and other conferences and stuff saying, we need to figure out how we can get so-and-so, or figure out how in the world are they consistently winning 10 games a season. So telling them that, like, you have to distinguish the two. So going back to what you said, like, what, like, why are we doing this? Like, what does this do for us later down the road? I think it's letting them understand, like, football isn't the only option. This sport, athletics, isn't the only option. This is just obviously opportunity for you to get education, experience, grow your network and stuff like that, but also to grow as an adult, to understand, like, there's other ways to achieve your goals. Like, you've seen that picture of, achievement. Buddy's riding his bike and he's going up a mountain, and a lot of people think it's just A to B. Like, I literally achieved my goal from A to B, and it is what it is. And then on the flip of that photo, it's, A to Z. You got all these hoops, hurdles. Part of the mountain is going down, stuff. And I was just like, that's how life is, and that's pretty much how you got to see it, professionally and personally. Like, a lot of guys really think that, especially young guys. I get to say that now. I'm almost 30.
Yeah, there's young guys now. Yeah,
these young guys, they really just see the sport that they play as the only option to achieve success for their family. And I was like, at the end of the day, like, a lot of people that I talk to, 7-figure guys and stuff like that, a lot of them who are older now, 50s, 60s, they tell me, and I'm just like, well, I definitely don't need to see this as the only option of success financially or whatever. But they all say, I wish I could have spent more time with my family, more time with my wife, my kids, my grandkids, and stuff like that, because they were so worried about the money. And I'm like, well, on a financial standpoint, you got, over $200 million in the bank. Family's living good. You got a place in the DRs, all this stuff. Now, was that the only route? And if you were, I think I asked him, like, if you only had $50 million, will you still be fine? He was like, I would probably enjoy life way more. Enjoyed, as in like past tense, enjoy life way more than having, like, I think it was just under $300 million in the bank. And I was just like, was it worth it? It was like, not really, because I know I'm not going to be able to spend all of it, nor what I want to, because of the future of my lineage, my bloodline. I want to make sure my grandkids are good and stuff like that. But I know the knowledge and experience and stuff that I have in my life is going to be passed down to them. So financially, they have nothing to worry about anyway. It's just, I wanted to get more and more and more, even though, like, I think he missed like a few birthdays, few first games. I was just like, and just like seeing Buddy like getting ready to tear up and stuff, I was like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It wasn't worth it. Once you achieve, whatever to make sure, financially you're good to go, you need to start taking time to spend with your family.
Yeah.
Period.
Period. Absolutely. Like there's, I mean, I try to be open to like everybody's ways of living, and I understand, like, I can't make choices for people, and as critical as I can be of like the way certain people live their lives, like, this is a conversation I was literally just having with my dad. I'm like, I just don't get it. Like, how do people go their whole life with this like lackluster approach towards like the amount of time spent with their family? Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, what I've settled on in my whole like, answer seeking process to this whole thing is like, well, at the very crux of it, like, if I think about it, I was born into this family, and like my mom and my dad created me. So now I guess, like, if I've only got, like, give or take, I don't even know what the average lifespan is nowadays, but even if you were to say like 75 to like 85 years or whatever of like quality living, you know, that's not that much time. Like, it seems like a lot of time, but it's not that much time. So it's like, if you were born into this family, like, you have your cousins, you have aunts, you have uncles, you have second cousins, you have third cousins, right? There's like, everything branches out. So it's like, why would you not spend that short life that you have, because life is short and it's fragile, right, trying to figure out like why you were put into this particular family and what you can provide and how you can create a community within that family. And like, I have so many friends and family members as well who kind of just go where they want to go and do what they want to do, and they got like friends and all this stuff. Like, we just did a major project on my truck this past weekend. We actually replaced the engine. It was me, my brother, and my dad. And I'm trying to explain to people like how cool it was and how wild it was. Yeah, the actual job itself was cool, but I was like, that's 45, 50 hours in a garage, 3 straight days working till like 1 o'clock in the morning with my brother and my dad. And like, I will never be able to like communicate that to other people, because they'll never understand like the value in that. And nor should they, right? Like, I think that's the goal of life, is to be able to have experiences that you just can't provide words for. That's how special they are. And so, I just think, I don't know, like that's probably where I'm at. Like that's I guess that's how I approach strength and conditioning, is I wanted to feel that feeling as well. And I definitely felt that at times, you know what I mean? I felt that with like the athletes work, I guess, to kind of bring this back full circles. It's like, you know, and I think that you having the outlook of like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you want to be looked at as somebody who was always there for the family, someone who's reliable, trustworthy, somebody who could actually be, you know, depended on, you know, as opposed to, you know, we got like jokes in my family, but there's always like that one, you know, like, I gotta go find myself or whatever. And then there's like Sebastian Maniscalco is like, I don't know if he's a comedian or whatever. He's a comedian who's like strictly just like, you know, just makes fun of Italians or whatever. But he's like, the old Italian dad's like, what do you got to go find yourself for? Like, I found you. You're in my house. You got no job. You know what I mean? You're not paying me rent. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to look for? You know? And so like, you know, it seems like you actually gotten to a place where you've really like found, you know, like peace of mind, you know. And it's funny because I had Don Day on the podcast over at Murray State, and he said the same thing. It's like, we're just looking for peace of mind. You know what I mean? And I think my personal opinion and what provides peace of mind to me is the family aspect. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whatever family is to you, whoever those people are, you know, I think that's the route. But before we get too off topic, and we're at like an hour now. I try to keep it around an hour, you know, but if you've got, you know, any final, I think you've, you know, given some incredible messages and some stuff that I really appreciate, and that I haven't really had on the podcast yet. So that's really nice that you were able to kind of provide that insight. But anything else that, you know, any kind of like final words you want to provide to, you know, the listeners, anything in particular about anything? It could be strength and conditioning. It could be some, you know, life insight, could be some resource or whatever you think people might value or benefit from, that you've benefited from. Or it could just be, you know, thanks, man. Appreciate you. Talk to you later. But yeah, whatever final words you want to go with. Yeah. Let me know, Myles, and then I'll wrap it up.
I think it's just been weighing on my heart a lot lately. It's just our profession as a whole. Like, I see us developing and getting better, but I think a lot of guys are seeing turmoil in just like rudimentary things, like, you know, seeing guys how they train and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, I think we always need that reminder of like, this is a job of service at the end of the day. So we came to service these athletes and coaches as well, not only in the physical state, but also spiritual and just mental realm as well, because we know, you know, mental health is a big thing now. It's always been a big thing, but now the spotlight is on it. So I think just having us like have that reminder, that daily reminder, because I needed to sometimes too, just understand like, we're here to service these athletes. They're with us majority of the time, so we need to understand like, okay, strength conditioning, that part's going to be easy for us. Train them, make them better athletes, but also understand, you know, these guys might be battling something that we don't even know, and we need to be able to support them in that way as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great message for sure. I appreciate you touching on that. Yeah, and you know, we'll have to have you back on, like I said, maybe, you know, down the road or whatever, and you know, be able to compare the two and see how things have changed. But yeah, great messages today, man. Really appreciate your insight. Appreciate the sort of reserved and stoic nature that you bring to obviously some of these thoughts. I definitely have an appreciation for that. So thanks again. I'm going to stick around for a little bit, but for all the podcast listeners, we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Couldn't do this without you guys. And yeah, man, we'll catch up soon. All right, Myles?
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Have a good one.
You too, man.